Welcome to Romaine Calm and Carrot On at Rouse's. I am Catherine Langlois, the dietitian here at Louisiana Blue, and I am part of a care team, and I work with nurses and pharmacists. And one of our pharmacists is here with me today.
Thank you, Catherine. My name is Lauren. I am a medication management pharmacist here at Louisiana Blue.
All right, and Lauren, how do you work with our members?
So my role with Louisiana Blue is to make sure that our members get the full benefit of their medications.
What are some common questions that members ask you when you speak to them?
So we get a lot of questions about side effects, such as what should I expect from my medications? Also, how should I properly take my medication?
So if someone wants to get a hold of you, how do they reach you?
Call us at the number at the bottom of the screen, and we'll be happy to help.
Awesome. Okay, great. Let's go shopping. Today, I'm at Rouse's, and we're going to talk about breads, grains, pasta, rice, all things carbs today. We're in Louisiana, and there's a lot of carbohydrates in our diet. So one thing I work with members on is portion and learning to still enjoy our jambalaya, our gumbo, our red beans and rice, but in portion control, and of course, getting our non-starchy vegetables in. But today, we're going to mostly talk about, again, the carbohydrates and really understanding those food labels and how to know your portions. So we're going to start with breads. Okay, so one very common comment I get all the time is that people are diabetic or they're watching their weight, and so they want to stop eating bread. They'll tell me they go to a fast food restaurant and they throw out the bread, but they're eating the meat and the French fries. So let's think about it. The bread is not the problem. It's not high fat, not high salt, especially in that meal. So one thing I stress is just knowing exactly the meal as a whole, and let's think about the food label and how many grams of carbohydrates is in that bread. So if you're having a sandwich for lunch or 2 slices of toast in the morning with some eggs, something like that, we're on target for carbs. I have a few examples here, but one thing I will say is your typical slice of bread has about 15 grams of carbohydrates. And we know that women need to have about 30 to 45 grams per meal, and men about 45 to 60. One important thing, though, is to look at your label, because this Nature's Own has the grams per slice, 1 slice, but our white wheat has the grams for 2 slices. So make sure to look at serving sizes so you don't get confused about that. You hear whole grain is better for you. The reason is the additional fiber. Fiber is great for heart health. It helps hold you over longer, helps with GI. It's a whole bunch of good benefits. However, there is still carbohydrates, even if something is whole grain and has fiber. So as always, look at your food label and you can see the total grams of carbs per slice. Okay, everyone's been talking and asking about Dave's Killer Bread. So the good thing about this is it has double the protein than what our other breads do, which is great. Protein is fabulous for us, and it, of course, has a lot of fiber. We still need to count our carbohydrates, so be aware of that. It's not carb-free or low carb. It has carbs, but it has fiber, and it has protein. It's an excellent source, but just be aware. Still read your food labels. One thing about bagels now. Your regular bagels are somewhere around 70, 73 grams of carbohydrates, which are pretty high. So these bagel thins have half that. So if you want to choose a bagel thin with some protein in the morning, that's a great breakfast option as opposed to the regular bagel that is really bready and often goes over our carb recommendations for women. Rice. Okay, I'm here with the good news that you can have rice. The big picture is just we're watching the portion. It is a carbohydrate. Again, carbs are a macronutrient. We want carbs every day. We're just overeating them. So that's the biggest thing, is paying attention to portion. Remember, there's no fat, there's no sugar. It's just a natural grain. Rice is awesome for us. So let's think about the portion. If about a cup is 45 grams, which is a portion, that's why it's incredibly important to have your rice with a protein and a vegetable. The problem is many of our rice dishes, jambalaya and white beans, gumbo and potato salad, red beans and rice and cornbread. It's all carbohydrates, sometimes low protein, no vegetable. Okay, so we have brown rice, we have white rice. All that to say there's a little bit more fiber in our brown rice, nothing crazy. I tell my patients, you choose what you like best. If you would rather get your fiber somewhere else, buy vegetables, buy fruits, by all means do that. The carbohydrates are the same. Now here in Louisiana, one question I get asked often by members is about this newer rice called Parish rice that's made locally. It has more protein. I was about to say fiber, sorry. There's a little bit more fiber, but it does have more protein. Protein's fabulous, but again, let's remember this is still a carb and we're still watching the portions. As always, just look at the food labels on the back. One last thing to point out is in this aisle, there's the quinoa, and then there's orzo. These are great grains to have. They have a lot more protein than your rice. So if you ever want to dabble in trying with these, they're excellent, but still look at that food label because it's still about a cup is about our 45 grams of carbohydrates, but you're getting more protein. Let's talk about a healthy plate. This is a great way to think about putting your plate together when you're having meals. Very simple. You want a fourth coming from your protein, a fourth from your carbohydrate, and then half of it from your non-starchy vegetables. Examples, what everyone needs. Let's think about protein first. You can do chicken, lean ground beef, you can do pork tenderloin, eggs, ground turkey, fish, things like that. Let's talk about the carbohydrates. Rice, a baked potato, a baked sweet potato, corn, peas, noodles, all kind of things like that. You could have a side of fruit. Let's say if it's in the morning, some berries, non-starchy vegetables we want to fill up here. We have broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, squash and zucchini, lettuce, tomato, mustard greens, collard greens, asparagus. Those are some great examples. But the whole goal is you don't want half or more of your plate filled with the carbs, a little bit of meat. We want to have meat, carbs, non-starchy vegetables. That's a great mindset to have when you're thinking about a healthy plate. All right, let's talk about another popular carbohydrate that people want to eliminate, but you don't have to, is pasta. So you can still enjoy spaghetti, but it goes back to the same thing is we're just paying attention to portion control. A lot of people want to have spaghetti with corn and French bread. And what is that? A whole lot of carbs. So that's where we try to think about getting that non-starchy vegetable in with the spaghetti. And let's pay attention to portions. Okay, so that's where we look at those food labels as we're doing with everything we've been looking at. So remember, this pasta, it's not high in sugar, it doesn't have fat. The pasta itself, it's not the problem. We got to think about maybe how we're preparing it. Fettuccine is a little bit higher fat than spaghetti sauce, things like that. But look at your food labels and you can see how many grams of carbs is in a serving. And when it comes to white pasta versus brown, there's more fiber in the brown pasta. So that's one of your benefits there. The carbohydrates are pretty much identical. Now, you'll see some things like this Veggie Craft or the made with chickpeas, and there's claims and stuff in this pasta aisle too. There's good news and bad news. Good news is things like these two have double the protein. So that's great. We love the protein, helps hold us over longer. However, these are still grains, so it still has carbohydrates. So if we're really counting our grams and being aware of the portion, just make sure to look at that food label and see how many grams of carbohydrates you're getting per serving. So know that you can still enjoy your pasta dish with a meat and a vegetable. We're just paying attention to that portion. Okay, let's talk cereal. So it's a very common dinner people have at night because they don't feel like cooking or are trying to avoid eating out. So they turn to a bowl of cereal. However, those carbohydrates can unfortunately add up quickly. They're low in protein. Many are low in fiber too. So the biggest thing is paying attention to your portion. Even some of the ones that are promoted as healthier, they're still fairly low in protein and the fiber is not that great. Our carbs really add up. So we have Special K here, we have the Quaker Oats, and then we have multigrain Cheerios. The serving sizes, just take a look at them. Some are 1 cup, some are 1/3 cup. One thing I recommend doing is pouring your typical bowl that you normally serve in, getting your 1 cup measuring cup, and seeing how many cups is actually in that bowl. Because, for example, if it is 30 grams of carbs for 1 1/4 cup and you're having 3 cups, it can add up quickly. Now, let's talk about the sugary cereals. They, of course, have a lot of added sugar that these don't have, and of course, a lot less protein. We know these are not very healthy for us for that reason, so think of these as a treat. You'll also see on the food label, they have the option about with milk. So remember, milk is a carbohydrate and does go towards our total number, but we get some more protein with milk. So when it comes to dinner, instead of pouring yourself a big bowl of cereal that adds up quickly with the carbohydrates, think back to that plate method that I strongly encourage of having a protein, a nutritious carbohydrate, and a vegetable, and you can make it simple. It doesn't have to be very time consuming, but that's a lot healthier and will hold you over longer than a few cups of Special K. Okay, let's talk about grits and oatmeal. They are great carbohydrates to have in the morning. Of course, pair with a protein, some boiled eggs, scrambled eggs, turkey sausage to have in addition. But both are good. I get asked often which is better, or people stop eating grits thinking they cannot have them. Here's the deal. The oatmeal has more fiber. Again, as we know, fiber is fabulous. Fiber helps hold us over. There's all kind of benefits. We like fiber, but oatmeal is not carb free, of course. And as always, I know you're tired of hearing me say it, look at those food labels. We, of course, have original oatmeal, and then there's other ones like the cinnamon spice, peaches and cream, blueberry cream, all this stuff. So they do have added sugar. So 1 packet can add up quickly if you're having multiple packets, and they'll have added sugar. But again, there's fiber and there's some protein. So oatmeal is great. Just be conscious of it. Grits. Grits lack that fiber, but they're a low-fat, nutritious carbohydrate. We get asked often about the salt. It's not salty. Let me say this. It doesn't go over your salt recommendations for that meal. It falls within the window that you need. So you're okay. We have the butter, the non-butter, and here's the butter one. There's only a gram of fat difference. So choose what you want, but just know that if you're having grits with some boiled eggs, you're still doing a heck of a lot better than, say, popping 2 Pop-Tarts in that toaster oven. This is the type of stuff we're trying to avoid. Very processed, so much added sugar, so much fat, all around bad for us. So pick your choice. Grits or oatmeal, both are great for us. Okay, let's talk crackers. Not the worst, not the healthiest. Just got to be aware of portions. Sorry to say it again. And also read those food labels. Sorry to say that again. But it is all about that. It is about portion control, looking at the food labels, because all crackers vary. So we need to know, is a serving of Ritz 7 crackers, 8, 9, 10 versus Triscuit or these other ones. So ideally, I say don't open up the bag and just go to town as a snack. That's when we end up eating more than the portion. Same with chips and other things like that. So if you know the portion, take that amount out, have it with some protein, maybe some sliced cheese, string cheese, salami, olives, different things like that that do not have carbohydrates. But let's run through things real quick. Ritz crackers, Wheat Thins, those type of crackers are all very similar, where you just need to look at the different portion to see how many crackers is your grams of carbohydrates. One thing that we love about Triscuits is the fact that there is not many ingredients. There is 3 ingredients in it, and we know that the less ingredients, the healthier something is. While it, of course, still has carbohydrates, but it has fiber, and it's just not many ingredients. Triscuits is a great option for a cracker. One thing I want to say about these gluten-free Good Thins, I saw there's a whole bunch of different flavors. These are gluten-free, corn and rice snacks. So of course, they're made with some carbohydrates. Corn and rice are carbs. Things that are gluten-free are not necessarily carbohydrate-free. This still has carbohydrates, but you can have a lot more portion of the crackers. So again, look at your food labels, just be aware, and that way you'll know what your serving is with crackers. Thank you so much for joining us today in the grocery store at Rouse's, learning about grains and incorporating nutritious carbohydrates into your life. Reach out to Louisiana Blue if you need additional assistance from me, the dietitian, and also check out our healthy eating playlist for some additional videos.